Hello, my love. Welcome to the podcast. My name's Gillen. I'm a psychic leadership coach, and this is your home of wild, untapped, untamed, feminine leadership. If you're a woman who knows she's called to be a woman of influence, to build an empire, to be the leader in your field, you are not going to awaken that visionary status by following someone else's strategy. You see, influential and visionary leadership can only be awakened from within you. And this is exactly why I'm not going to teach you strategy here. I am going to share practical strategies for you to align to your feminine and awaken what is already within you. But I'm not going to share some generic how to or another strategy that every other coach on the internet is currently sharing. So today we're going to break down exactly what feminine leadership is. I'm going to share what masculine energy is and what feminine energy is, so you can understand why you need to harness both of them to achieve a deep state of flow and to create the success that doesn't cost you your own health or your personal life. We have an epidemic of women right now who are exhausted, who are overwhelmed and feeling the weight and the pressure to hold it all. Some women are feeling invisible behind their roles as mothers or behind the success because we've been taught that we need to sacrifice ourselves to get ahead. This has you pushing, hustling hard to create that success. And the problem is it's only ever going to lead to burnout. And this is why aligning with your feminine is so important for you to create success that not only looks good on paper, but that also feels good, that feels expansive. Because influential leadership, that is only something that can be embodied. So what is feminine energy? Feminine energy is pure creation. If you think about the universe, she is everything that is moving within the universe. To be leading from your feminine is to know that as a creative force, you are always in perpetual stages of change and motion. Masculine energy, on the other hand, is the stillness of the universe. This is really the black abyss. So if we're to think about qualities of masculine energy, a good way to think of them is that masculine energy is always the structure. It is stillness, contemplation, logic, anything that really follows a really rigid or a really uniform way of doing things. Now, what's important when leading from your feminine is that you need to understand that feminine energy actually needs masculine structure. Without it, it is complete chaos. If you think of a flood energy is chaos. Whereas if you think of a river that is contained by the masculine structure of the banks and the rocks, that is water that's flowing with ease and flow. However, if there are no rocks there and water's just going everywhere, it's chaos. And so feminine without structure is like that, because for feminine to be in her full expression, for her to really tap into deep states of creativity, she must always be held. So from a leadership perspective, if we're thinking about masculine v feminine qualities, feminine is your intuition. It's your creativity. It's your ability to innovate, to be present, to have emotional intelligence. Whereas if you think about your masculine qualities as the structure in your business, what are the systems that you're building that really allow you to be more in your flow? And this is where a lot of people can really go wrong when they start to lead from their feminine, is that they go all the way to the nth degree only to find out that there is no end, because the feminine is always creating. So she's always evolving. So that end point is always changing. And as someone who likes to go to the edges of things, personally, when I found out there was no end, I was like, all right, we need to come back into the masculine, because without the masculine, we can feel overwhelmed. We can feel chaotic. This is when we start to feel really anxious, or in a leadership position, you're going to suffer from anxiety. if you don't have the plan and the structure in place to help you be more in your feminine. So if we understand that feminine energy is pure creation at her essence, this is a frequency that as female leaders, we get to embody the qualities of the feminine to create success, not from the force, the push, the hustle that are masculine qualities. And I would say that they're unbalanced masculine qualities, but from deep states of alignment and flow. So the biggest mindset shift that I find female leaders need to get their head around when it comes to leading in your feminine is that you need to understand that your business and how you lead will consistently change. And this is a good thing, because if we're not constantly adapting, changing, flowing, we're in stagnation, and stagnation is the death of innovation. And I know that you are here to be a really innovative leader. So when you lead from your feminine, can you give yourself permission to always be in perpetual states of change? My personal experience of this is my business consistently evolves. How I lead, how I show up is always changing. When I first started my business, I started teaching corporate workshops, and then I worked as a healer. Then I started running retreats. At one point, I was a yoga teacher. And for the last few years, I've been working as a coach, supporting high achiever women. But even how I do that consistently changes all the time. And this is because I am an embodiment of feminine energy. And so I know that for me, to really fulfill my potential, to fulfill the role that I came here on earth to fulfill, means that I am always changing. And so give yourself permission that as a female leader who is embodying her feminine energy, who you are, how you show up, how you lead, and your business will always change. And this is because your business really gets to be a vehicle for the life that you want to live. Now, very intentionally, women were really disconnected from their bodies, from their eroticism, from their spiritual powers, as a way to disempower women, to keep them small and palatable. Now, this was done by the church, the crown, and the patriarchy, because they wanted capitalist structures to be the way that society functioned. And now capitalism has some benefits, but it was set up because the feminine practices that had ruled before that were counterproductive to a capitalist structure in which you as a human being are here to produce for the benefits of others. So when we start to lead in alignment with our feminine, it's really going back to leading in alignment with our body. And to help give you a really simple framework that you can start using to lead from your alignment, to create the success that your soul is craving, I've broken this down to 7 pillars to really help give you a framework and to show you that this is how you can use the masculine to create a structure that allows you to be in your feminine. So the first one is, every morning, I want to invite you to start dropping into your body and asking your body what she needs today. Now, no matter how wild, crazy, mundane this seems, I want you to honor that. For instance, this morning when I woke up, my body wanted a massage. I was like, okay. So I sat there for 30 minutes and gave myself a massage. Now, when you do this, when you start to prioritize the needs of your body, not what your mind thinks you need, what you do is you allow yourself to then create from a place of deep flow. And this means that you'll be able to get hours work done in a couple of hours. So for instance, this morning, after I was able to prioritize my massage, I went for a walk, got a coffee, I sat down, and in about an hour and a half, I did what might have taken me 3 hours if I hadn't have prioritized the needs of my body. So framework number 1 is to start to connect to your body. For every morning, for you to connect to what she needs and to prioritize that as a practice. Step number 2 is to really start to reconnect to your cyclical intelligence. What we need to understand about the feminine is that whilst a capitalist structure has us working in a 24-hour time frame, that's actually designed around men. And women have a very different cycle. We have a 25 to a 28-day cycle. And during this cycle, we go through different phases where our energy, or the feminine energy in us, is in different types of expression. This means that sometimes in that 28-day period, you are going to be in a super creative place. You're going to be able to write really from a place of deep inspiration. You're going to be able to innovate, to create, to come up with strategies that you need to really move your business forward. You might have other periods in which you're kind of reviewing, you're in more internal energy. And in this phase in my business, I schedule less meetings because I know that my capacity to be present with a lot of people when I'm in the last phase of my monthly cycle is pretty limited, to be honest, because my body wants to wind down. She's requiring rest. However, after I bleed, I know that that's an amazing time for me to be really productive. So I do planning stuff at that phase of my cycle, in that time when my body has more creative, outgoing energy. Because as a woman, we need to understand that because we embody feminine energy, and feminine energy is always in changing states, that how we lead gets to change on a day-to-day, weekly basis. And so this can look like starting to manage your energy and not your time, because you can have all the time in the world, but if you're exhausted, you have not going to be able to show up for the things that are really important to you. And this brings me to step number 3, which is rest is a superpower. And now I've worked with hundreds of women, and when I try and inspire them to cultivate a practice with rest, it is the number one thing that I get pushback on, which absolutely blows my mind, to be honest. And that just goes to show how much we have been conditioned as a society to believe that if we are off, if we are not producing, then we are lazy. And when we get down to the beliefs that have women constantly on these cycles of push, 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 there is a belief that if they stop, they are lazy underneath. And this is one of those societal conditionings that you get to break free of when you start to lead from deep alignment with your feminine. Remember that your body has her own rhythm, and your rhythm of your body is going to look very different to mine. So how can you start to align with the cyclical intelligence of your body? Because when you do this, you will access deep states of flow and creativity. And this is where you create success without the force. Now, remember that rest is a superpower. And so the more that you cultivate a practice of rest, the more you prioritize downtime, the more it's going to allow you to produce when you come out of one of your hibernation phases, of one of your cycles where you're feeling more tired, where you don't have so much energy. And I really want you to remember that there are different types of rest that you need. Most people believe that rest is simply sleep. However, if you are physically exhausted, if you are spiritually exhausted, it doesn't matter how much you sleep, you're not going to be able to replenish yourself. So it's really important when starting to cultivate a practice of rest to understand that there are different types of rest that you need. The next is to reconnect and awaken your spiritual gifts. As a woman, intuition is one of the most powerful feminine qualities. Now, your spiritual gifts are your innate abilities. And when you tap into them, when you awaken the intelligence of the body, this is when you start to innovate ahead of the crowd. This is when you really start to step into that visionary leadership, because you're leading from a place of deep inspiration, because you're connected to more expansive types of thinking. When you go out into the realms of your psychic abilities, you transcend the limitations of space and time. So you're able to innovate, create, and really go into big picture thinking, and then draw that back through the body to innovate. And this is how you leave the crowd for dead. Also, as we move into the age of AI, women who are tapped into their psychic abilities, they are going to be the leaders in their field, because AI will never be able to tune into spiritual awareness. And so when you start to harness your spiritual gifts, you actually start to use them as your most strategic and competitive edge, because they are going to be the thing that sets you apart from the rest of the crowd who's still typing in what their next business plan should be into ChatGPT. The next one is starting to reclaim your eroticism. An erotically alive woman is unforgettable. When you start to reclaim your sense of turn on, your sense of pleasure, you open up your pathways to your throat. This means that you begin to speak with embodied presence. This is how you become the woman who walks into a room and whose presence is felt before she even speaks. It's how you begin to speak with embodied authority, because there is a frequency that you inject out into the world that your clients, your competitors, your potential collaborators can feel beyond your words. And this is where you really start to harness the energetics of leadership as a superpower, because when you start to open up your vulva, you reclaim your pleasure, you drop down into a deeply empowered, confident speaker whose presence is felt. When you start to reconnect to your sense of pleasure, you become magnetic. This is where opportunities, collaborations, and things just start to come with you. And this is one of the most powerful things about leading from alignment in your feminine, is that we don't chase, we attract. So what does this look like? I have just been through the most uncomfortable period of my business, where I have been invited to step into all new levels of leadership. And this has had to mean a lot of shedding. Now, within this, it has been very clear that the next version of myself is me as a speaker. So I had to let a lot of how my business was operating go. But because I was connected to my body, because I was trusting, and because I was so clear on who I was becoming, and I started to embody her anyway, I woke up the other day with an invitation to go and speak at a conference in Austin next year. Now, I didn't chase that. I didn't know these people were following me. And this is what happens when you start to develop a self-pleasure practice, is you become magnetic for what is an energetic match for you. The polarity of this is because we live in a polarity universe. Duality is a thing here on earth, is that anything that is no longer a match will dissolve. And that can be really fucking uncomfortable, because that forces you to the edges of your comfort zone. The next step is a feminine woman owns the full spectrum of her life experience. She understands that for her to harness her true power, she must begin to meet all the places within herself that are limiting that are scared of that. And this is where an embodied feminine leader knows that her shadow, her pain, her grief, her anger are pathways for her to alchemize that and own more of her power. I cannot believe it when what happened when I started developing a relationship with my anger. Firstly, the first time I truly allowed my body to express all the freaking rage that I had suppressed, I could not believe the spaciousness that I felt immediately afterwards. It was like I was carrying 100 extra kilos of energetic weight because I was believing that anger made me bad or that anger was a bad emotion. But anger is not. All of our emotions are sacred, and all of them are there to tell us when something that we care about has either been violated or when we want more of something, depending where on the emotional spectrum our emotions are sitting at that time. And so for you to truly own more of your power, for you to really become a woman who is truly influential, is going to require you to meet the parts of you that you're ashamed of, that you believe make you unworthy. The parts of you that you're avoiding right now, they are the keys to your power and to your next level. So when you start to lead in alignment with your feminine, it's about always honoring those parts of yourself just as much as you do your pleasure, your creativity. And now the last part in this 7-part framework to really start to lead with your feminine is to start to cultivate an embodied movement practice. Because what this does is it allows you to drop down from the head into your body. Now, your head, if you're leading in alignment with your head, most of the time you are going to be doubting yourself. You're going to be second guessing yourself. However, when you drop down from the head into the body, this is where you make empowered decisions from a place of unwavering trust and self-confidence, because you know unapologetically what the right next move is. And this is a power move. A woman who moves from the intelligence of her body, from the sacred knowing of her body, she is unstoppable, because and this is where you become a force of nature, because you know exactly what the right next move is, how to make it, and what's more, you're not waiting for permission, because there is an undeniable knowing within your body. So what does this look like? That can look like choosing 3 songs that you really love and just allowing yourself to drop down into the body, to allow her to express anything that you've been repressing, and to really then allow your body to lead you and to reveal to you the wisdom that she wants you to know so that you can move forward. Also, a really great way to relieve stress, tension, anxiety, and then to allow yourself to connect to embodied confidence and power. So let me recap that for you. When you are leading in alignment with your feminine, and when you're just starting out from this, there is a really incredible 7-part framework that I've created for you to allow you to start doing this. Number 1 is to every morning drop down into the intelligence of your body. And no matter how wild, crazy, mundane it seems, to honor exactly what your body needs. Number 2 is to start to lead from alignment with your cyclical intelligence. So to connect down to the different phases of energy that your body consistently cycles through, and to start to schedule your energy in alignment and your tasks in alignment with each phase, and watch as your productivity skyrockets. Number 3 is that rest is a superpower. And the more that you can rest, the more that you can then lead from a really inspired, productive way. Because Albert Einstein used to sleep for 12 hours a night because he understood that for his brain to function at optimal performance, it needed to rest just as hard as it was working. And so I really want you to reframe any mindset blocks that you might have around your relationship with rest. Number 4 is to start to open yourself up for the fact that you're a spiritual being, that as a woman, you have these amazing spiritual psychic gifts, your intuition is there to support you to lead with visionary status, to make really bold, empowered decisions that are going to set you apart from the crowd. Number 5, start to reconnect with your pleasure. And now it's easy to think of pleasure as simply orgasm. However, you can experience pleasure in the mundane. So I invite you to, when you're sipping your coffee, to allow yourself to feel the pleasure of what that drink feels like. Maybe when you're massaging or washing your face, to allow yourself to experience the pleasure of your hands as they gently caress and massage your face. You see, we can experience pleasure in each and every moment if you allow yourself. And then number 7 is to start to develop an embodied movement practice. And how can you start to connect to the intelligence of your body and really start to allow her to lead? That was number 6. Number 7 is to remember that your shadow work, your pain, your grief is the pathway to your power, and that your full emotional spectrum, your full experience is truly sacred. So how can you start to develop a relationship and allow yourself to truly express every emotion that you feel? Because that is honestly the only way to start to move it through you. And when you start to lead from this place, this is how you create the success, the influence, the impact that your soul is craving. This is how you start to create success that doesn't come from sacrifice, because you're starting to lead in alignment with your body. You're honoring her rhythms, and you're creating success in a place that's deeply sustainable. So my invitation for you is to try one of these 7-part frameworks this week and to spend some time reflecting on, what does leading in alignment with your feminine truly mean to you? And I'll be back next week. I will see you then. Thank you.